Okay, good day. Today we are going to discuss about the next course material that is related to the useful application that you can use to write your paper and also to design some slides with better visuals. And it's supposed to be today, I'm just going to show you about several things or videos that is readily available on YouTube that I've specifically upload in the EduNext LMS. But let me show you, or let me share to you the updates on the EduNext condition up until today at 11 a.m. Okay, so I should share my screen and let you know. Okay, so I guess in Sunday, in Sunday I've already uploaded several materials that related to the application that you could access for improving the quality of your paper and slide presentation. But unfortunately, since this morning, I kind of have difficulties in accessing the EduNext website. I'm not sure whether this problem is occur in yours as well, but please check your connection with EduNext. If you able to connect, or if you're able to access the LMS at this time, please do so later after we done with the course material, so that you could new things, or you could see the example that is given in the videos about the several application given there. And since the LMS of EduNext cannot be accessed in my place, so I would like to show you the previous year, the previous semester's LMS that we use at that time. Okay, so I guess this was coming up from semester 2, 2020, 2021. So it's basically the last semester. I've also add some materials about this topic. Okay, so firstly is about the grammar checking applications called Grammarly. And if I'm not mistaken, our department or our study program has already have access to Grammarly, but unfortunately the access is restricted to graduate students. So for those who are enrolled in the doctorate and master degree program at the moment. And so the access for these applications, probably you could use it if you are involved in some kind of a collaborative research done in your research division. Okay, so one of the tools that nowadays is readily available now is Grammarly, which is basically an application made by some kind of artificial intelligence software that basically have the library of grammar used by several papers, that if we are able to upload the manuscript to the software or to the website, they could check whether our choices of words or choices of nouns and verbs inside of particular sentence is already correct or not. So if you're going to see what is Grammarly all about, probably if you click the link to Grammarly, For example, I'm not sure.
Everyone, in today's video, I want to
okay. So for the matter of copyright video on YouTube, because I'm going to upload this material later on in YouTube, please go to YouTube and look for the video titled "How to Use Grammarly for Beginners," because that is some kind of a introduction for students who is going to use Grammarly. And Grammarly itself is basically a new application, because in my time, in the past, because relatively 10 years ago, there were no applications that could use, well, probably people in some part of the world knew about the software, because I think, let me check it on the Wikipedia quick. Grammarly. Okay, Grammarly. I could access the Wikipedia. Okay, I hope accessing Wikipedia is not infringing the copyright material thing on YouTube, because for those of you who wants to look at the because the video that I upload in YouTube is basically for the report to the study program in terms of the as in accreditation, as a proof that the lecture or the class of scientific communication is given in the corresponding language, which is in English, and also the material covered there is basically done in the correct fashion. And so let me return to the information about Grammarly. Grammarly is a Ukrainian origin, American headquarters, across platform, cloud-based writing assistant that reviews spelling, grammar, punctuation, clarity, engagement, and delivery mistakes. So for those of you who have the luxury, or for those of you who have the access to Grammarly, if you able to purchase an account, or if you're able to involve with some kind of research project that your advisor has in your research division, and at one point you are introduced to Grammarly, please do so to use this tools, because from there, if you want to send some kind of a paper, or you want to present an international seminar, the first thing that you probably would do is to check whether your sentences is already properly created, is already properly written, or your phrases, or your sentences that you use in your presentation slide is already correct. So as it is mentioned here, this software is not basically coming from the English language country. Well, it is originated from Ukraine. It is basically created in order to help people who are not using English as their first or second language to write manuscript in English. So it's basically to help everybody who wants to write a certain paper, or certain article, or certain report in English, and they want to make the report firm. Okay, to make they will not have grammar mistakes, punctuation, and then pronunciation, and there's some kind of a logical clarity between one sentence to another, etc., and so on. So in order to do that, they have this, they create this software in order to tackle those problems, especially for those who are have limitation in English grammar, basically. But it doesn't mean, okay, it doesn't mean that there are no other applications. Other applications, so let me see in the bottom, for example, language tools is also a free and open source grammar, style, and spell checker, and it's all features are available for download. So another tools that you could have is language tools besides Grammarly. It is which basically serve the same function as Grammarly itself. So for those of you who wants to have an alternative to Grammarly, you can also use the secondary software science language tool, or the simplest one actually. Okay, but I guess the facility given in this application is quite. I don't know whether it's could be limited or not, but the first step in order for you to before you're sending this manuscript to Grammarly or to language to or to any application that you have, you could check it by yourself in the beginnings, in the first step. So for example, when you have this manuscript, so I'm just taking an example from my PhD proposal. I can use this facility in Microsoft Word. So I'm not promoting for you to use Microsoft Words, but I'm just going to show you an example of how Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word itself has the ability to detect some kind of errors in terms of the writings of certain words, and then they also knew how to detect verb and subject disagreement between one sentence to another, between one sentence and what, and then they also knew how whether the writings of one particular compound sentence could be divided into two, or you just make it as it is, but using different approach, etc. and so on. So in order for you to activate the language tools that you have in Microsoft Office, is that you could use, or you could just write the sentences that you want, and then if you look at this icon over here, and then you switch it into the language that you want to create. For example, I'm writing here in the US English. Okay, I could check mark the do not check spelling or grammar, or I can leave it as it is. Okay, so if I'm leaving it as it is, the computer itself will evaluate whether the writings that I have is already correct or not. And then if I'm checking this one, it could detect the language automatically. So whenever it encounters some kind of a non-English words inside of it, they can detect the particular words as something that is not English language. For example, if you have an Indonesian name, they could know that this particular word is coming up from Indonesian, etc. and so on. So these are basically the basic. Before you send something into certain applications, you could check by yourself whether the thing that you already write is already correct or not, because the tools of Grammarly and language tools itself that you have here is basically just to give you some kind of a second opinion on how you write the manuscript itself. So don't make them as your primary source of revisions, okay? Because the revision of your paper should be done by yourself. That is the first step, okay? The first step of revising your paper or your report or study project or study report, etc. and so on, is by yourself, because you are the writers that need to be responsible for the things that you add or the thing that you write inside of your paper or inside of your presentation slide. And therefore, by activating the grammar check on the Office tools or in the Office software, is the first step before you moving on to the third-party applications. Okay, so for example, if you So here, obviously, in this page over here, in the introduction, there are errors sending out. There are error reports that is sending out here, given by words that mostly are coming from the names. Okay, the names of certain researcher that I include them as my literature review or as the background of my study. So here, Microsoft Words obviously needs to have plenty of artificial intelligence or some kind of experience library in order for them to know that certain word is corresponding to author's name and others is basically a typical English language words, for example. But for most of the sentences that is written here is basically already good, okay, and there are no faults in terms of the grammar check given by the Microsoft Words. If you are planning to use other Office or word processing tools such as LaTeX and so on, I think there are available tools in order for you to detect the grammatical error that happens on LaTeX, for example. In OpenOffice is an alternative for Microsoft Office. They also have their own language tools that can detect the certain usage of grammar and also punctuation, and also to check whether punctuation is correctly used or certain word is correctly written, etc. and so on. And so let me check whether there is a tools for LaTeX. Tools for, okay, so I'm tools for LaTeX. So for those of you who want to know what is LaTeX, LaTeX is basically a word processing software that mainly used in many physics publications. That is, and also in mathematical journals, chemistry journals, etc., and so on. And the final product of LaTeX, some are saying that the results is much better compared to the Microsoft Words, and many people prefer to use LaTeX instead of using Microsoft Words. But if you are new to LaTeX and you are still or you are prefer to write your manuscript in Microsoft Office like myself, we could look for the newest applications in order for us to improve our writings. For those of you who use LaTeX, I think they have these essential LaTeX tools, okay, that can be used here. I'm not myself is not a LaTeX user as obviously. So here, if you want to, okay, so here, okay, so it's basically the power of flexibility LaTeX. No, but LaTeX itself is a user-friendly LaTeX. So if you are using the original LaTeX software or the original LaTeX application, what they did is basically they have this kind of a if you are familiar with Python or with C++ or with Fortran, LaTeX is basically a language, is just like a programming language to create a manuscript. Okay, it's just like a language, is a programming language to create a manuscript. So they will ask you to input some kind of a command and then functions, etc., and so on, in order for you to create titles, in order for you to choose a specific type of paper, specific size of fonts, a specific type of fonts, what are the margins, the left, top, bottom, and right margins, what is your wording orientation, is it regular, is it italics, is it bold, etc., and so on, made using a command as you are programming some numerical experiments. Okay, so that is basically what LaTeX did. And in order for a user to have some kind of a friendly version, okay, user-friendly version of LaTeX, they have LeX. So LeX itself, I think in the past I've used LeX for my ICTP diploma program. So LeX is basically, okay, so if I'm showing you some images of LeX, okay, is it clear from here? So here is basically how the command editor, okay, or the editor of LeX itself is created. So this is basically how they do it, and then how you create figures, and then how you input the information or the descriptions of that particular figures, and then how you write the equations in LeX in a LaTeX format, which is basically creates more elegant visuals of equation compared to Microsoft equations. So let me show. Do I have some kind of example for this? Let me see. Microsoft publications. Do I have an example for it? Publications? Okay. This is, well, I can show you the final product of it. Okay, this one is created from LeX, which I've mentioned earlier as a user-friendly application of LaTeX. And if I'm enlarge this, okay, if I'm enlarging the visibility of this one, so let me fit the width. Okay, so here you can see that the arrangement of the title of your names, your affiliation, etc., and then the purpose itself is done in a very majestic way compared to the Microsoft Words. However, if you're not familiar with LaTeX or LeX, then probably using Microsoft Words is probably the best solution for you. But if you are interested to learn about this, so it is automatically, so if you click this, let's go to this, right? So, and then if you click this one, and then it goes to this figure over here, and then let me show you. Okay, see, if you're using LaTeX or LeX, the format of your equation inside of your basic theory will be done like this way. This done in a crisp visual. It's much way better compared to Microsoft Office. For Microsoft Office, on the other hand, you will have choices. Okay, so in Microsoft Office, let me show you my proposal draft. You can have choices to use the Microsoft Office equation over here, which is a typical way to create equation, but there are other ways to have this. Let me see. So most of the equation that I have in my proposal is written in the Microsoft Office format. However, I do have some example that in order for us to have a good visual in terms of the writing of equation, more or less similar to what LaTeX is producing. Microsoft Office have the tools, let me see, equation, not equation, math type, okay, math type. So it's a tool that basically which basically make you able to write equation, but not using the format of Microsoft equations. Okay, so if you are familiar with the older version of Microsoft Office or with Microsoft Word's equation in the past, the format is just similar with math type. Okay, so in the older version of Microsoft Office, the visual of the equation is more similar, and it gives the visual is more beautiful. Okay, that is comparable to form of equation in LaTeX. Okay, like this one. So so what math type did is basically is they as a third party software, obviously, because you have to pay sum of money to get it, or probably, or although it is not advisable for you to look for the illegal version of the software, but if you have it and you are want to know what is the differences between the final product of Microsoft equation and math type, you could do it. Which basically the math type software will give you some kind of final product that more or less is comparable to the visuals of LaTeX. And I'm actually want to show you about this because the thing that I've written here is mostly is written in Microsoft equation, but let me see. Okay, so here in the template, okay, remember we have a template that we could choose. Oh, okay, so here in the final paper template that I've already sent you all in the previous lectures, they have this object over here. Okay, so here the equation cannot be edited automatically because it's using a third-party software and it is usually used math type. So here, if I'm clicking this, okay, it asks me to convert equation to Office math. So if I click yes, then it will change into Microsoft equation. So look at the effect before and after I click the yes option. So this is before. This one is using math type format, and this is after I use the after it's changed into Microsoft equations. And you can see that the format, it can become the form, and it is not particularly well. Actually, for your defense, it depends on your advisor. If your advisor is kind of active in producing paper, probably they will ask you to learn about how to use math type, because they want you to produce a good quality manuscript. But if not, then using Microsoft equation itself is already done your job basically. But if your purpose is not only to produce a thesis or a final project report, if your objective is also want to have or to produce a good paper in terms of its visual, then I recommend you to use math type for your paper writing or for your slide presentations. Okay, because a math type itself, the equation can be copy and paste into Microsoft Words and also Microsoft PowerPoints. It's just that the editor is on math type. Okay, so that is the difference. It is not embedded. It is not included in the Microsoft in the Microsoft package or in the Microsoft software, but the editor itself is using the math type editor. Okay, and unfortunately, this software is kind of it is not a free software, so you might need to buy it for some of money. But if you're able to look for the other solution, okay, the other version, for example, then I highly recommend you to use math type instead of using the Microsoft equation. Or if you want to make your manuscript into another level, then I'm suggesting you to use LaTeX or LIX. Okay, because as it is previously seen here, okay, in LIX or LaTeX itself, the writings of the equation is done with a certain algorithm, with a certain functions, and it may consider as a new type of programming language. But nevertheless, the result, if you see here, the result of LaTeX, the visual is strikingly good. Okay, the visual is strikingly good. Obviously, the thing that I produce here using LIX and LaTeX for this type of manuscript is still on the elementary level, because I haven't touched the ability of using the header and footer of this particular manuscript. But if you're able to know how to make header and footer efficiently in LaTeX and LIX, you will produce a very crisp and visually good manuscript, whether it's in paper or a final project report, etc., and so on. Okay, so I have introduced you to use for LIX itself. I guess they also have the if you're able to look upon for it, you could also get the tools that will be beneficial for you to use for checking the grammar in LaTeX and LIX. It's just that you need to search for them, okay? Because I'm not familiar with the language tools on LIX and LaTeX, but I think they do have third-party tools that you can have if you are choosing to use LaTeX. Okay, so for here, it is given here, LaTeX tool. Okay, so this basically just giving not directly showing you the language tools for LaTeX, but let me look in Google language tool for LaTeX, for example. Language tools for LaTeX. Language tool for LaTeX. Okay. Install. Okay, so you basically need to installing a language tools in Text Studio, and then the package itself will automatically scan through the manuscript that you write in LaTeX, and they will and then if you activate the option of using the text of the language tools, it will basically detect the error automatically. But since I'm not familiar with this, I'm not going to explore more about this. But if you're interested with this, please feel free to look for these articles that related to the how language tools is operating in LaTeX and LIX. Okay, so I have talked to you about the Grammarly. Okay, the second one is after you check your grammar, whether it's already in a perfect condition or not. The second one is to check whether your manuscript have similarities with other manuscripts that are already available in the internet or available online. Okay, because nowadays, even for papers that were published in 1950s, in 1960s, in 1970s, they already have the digital format of it. Okay, even though at that time journal publication were made hard copy. Okay, they only made a hard copy of publication, whether it's in journals, magazine, etc., and so on. But many of them are already digitally recorded so that we can access. Although some of them are still in a visual, in a image PDF format. So it is not. So the old paper or the paper that were published before 1990, they only, most of them, even though they are in PDF format, but most of them are not restored into, are not stored as sentences. Most of them are saved as an image or a paper that were scanned using an automatic scanner, and then they will compile by each corresponding title, and therefore the arrange or the compilation of words or the compilation of paragraph that exists in the old paper is not readily available in the Turnitin library. Okay, so most of the comparison that were made by the Turnitin software is basically coming out from recent publications that most of them are done most of them have some kind of a copy that is present online. Okay, so here, if you use Turnitin, usually what you need to do is to have or to type the password and username, and and Turnitin itself is one of the application that our faculty have. So for example, if I'm using the username and password from FMIPA, for example, and then log into it, I could basically submit manuscript that I want to check to Turnitin in order to check whether there are paper that already available outside that have some degree of similarity with us. So because nowadays, especially the terms of copyright, plagiarism issue, etc., and so on becomes more and more strict. So in order for us to have a manuscript with a certain level of similarity, we need to upload our draft into this before we basically turn our manuscript into the publisher. Well, that is normally what graduate students is doing actually. But if you are also plan, or if your advisor asks you to cooperate and to work basically to extend your final project work into a certain paper, then you need first is to check the grammar, okay, because we are dealing with a formal writing. We are not creating some kind of fiction articles. We are creating scientific articles, and therefore the grammar becomes important. And then the second one is we need to make sure that our manuscript is not similar. Our paper is not similar with the things that are already available online. Okay, so this is here we just quick submit, etc., and so on, and then we submit, and then we choose the paper, and then we add the so here, for example, I have using the software to check one of your paper that I have sent them, that I randomly selected, just for because I kind of curious about the thing that you write in your paper introduction. If your paper introduction were so good in terms of the grammar, and then in terms of the logical flow of one sentence to another, of one paragraph to another, and then if I found some kind of a complex words or complex jargon that you use in your manuscript, I'm kind of curious whether it is originally written, or it is copy and paste from other source that you are not citing, that you are not referencing to. So here is basically a good tool for me as the lecturer to see whether your final paper, or for your paper, is originally written or originally done, or you just copy and paste. So if you click submit here, you basically open the window for uploading the manuscript, and also to add the title, the writer, etc., and so on, and other information that are important for this software to work. Okay, so this is Turnitin. Grammar check is a tool for you to check your grammar, and then Turnitin is a tools for you to check similarity or plagiarism check. And then I have talked to you about the equation tools that Microsoft Office user usually have. And then, okay, the other software that might interest you is our software that are going to help you in order to edit the quality of your figures, to edit the quality of your graph, etc. So please underline this statement. This software is not intend you to change the data. It's not intend to change the result, but to edit. I mean, edit here if you are producing some certain graph. For example, let me check here whether I have a certain graph or not. Okay, so for example, like this one. Okay, obviously this graph over here is this. It is not drawn in Microsoft Paint. Okay, it is not drawn in Microsoft Paint, but at least I need to have other software where I could make this so that the quality of the visual is better. Okay, or the quality itself is in high quality. So the choices of software that I could use to produce this is whether I'm using PowerPoint. Okay, this is the so if you're using PowerPoint and then you make some kind of a new blank presentation, and then you click new slide, blank. Okay, this is very basic. If you are want to, okay, like this one, okay, and then you don't want to have the fillings inside of it, so I'm basically want to reproduce the modeling domain that I have in my proposal. Okay, the color is still blue, so but I'm going to like this one, right? And then I'm adding okay, this is shape format. Okay, I'm going to add second layer for this one. Okay, like this one. Okay, and then I'm changing the weight of it, etc., and so on. Okay, and many other things in order for me to recreate this figure over here. Okay, so obviously you're not using Microsoft Paint for this. You need a third-party software. So if you're using PowerPoint, for example, and then you want to uh, move this or to use this figure in your manuscript, then there are two alternatives you could do. Okay, you could save it as a PDF. Sorry, you could save it. Yeah, you could save it as a PDF, or you could save it as a JPEG. A JPEG is a type of figure that is considered as raster image. So here, okay, raster image. Whereas PDF and EPS that is produced by you is a vector image. There are disadvantages and also advantages of using raster image and as well as vector image. If you are the most striking advantages of using vector image is that when you are going to stretch your image, or if you want to change the dimension of your figure, it is more preferable to change it in vector, because the resolution of vector image will not change, because the resolution of vector image will be maintained as it is. So there will be no watermark that is unnecessarily watermark that is created from a raster image, such as from BMP or JPEG. Okay, so for example, if this one is too simple for you, the other, okay, here. So the story of this figure here is that I produced this one using MATLAB. Okay, I'm producing the original figure here, or the tomogram. Okay, this is basically a tomogram of a certain earthquake. I use MATLAB to produce this calculation. Okay, and you can see that it is coming out from MATLAB because it has color bar, and then the contours of the location of the earthquake is done in a very smooth interpolation, etc., and so on. So this is basically coming out from MATLAB. However, the output of MATLAB can be choose whether you want to produce it as a JPEG or as an EPS. When I was producing this one, I choose to save it as an EPS. Okay, what is EPS? EPS is a vector image, just like PDF. So from that EPS, I'm using Adobe Illustrator to basically add information or change the titles or the resolution that is available here. So for example, this one, as I mentioned earlier, this one is produced using MATLAB, but the MATLAB output does not contain this one. Okay, it does not contain this star over here. It does not contain the box, the text box over here, and it does not contain, or it is not producing the fonts, specific fonts that I'm using here. Okay, so in this case, when I'm saving this image as a vector image, I'm using Adobe Illustrator to basically fix this word over here, distance and depth, and then the numbers over here to a certain font type. For example, here in this example, I'm using Arial. Okay, in this so in this case, I'm using Arial. Okay, because what MATLAB gave me when it's producing an EPS file, the format of its letters is unrecognizable, or I'm not remember what is the type was, but I'm changed the font type into Arial, and then I'm changing also the size. So I want to make the image or the information about this tomogram become obviously seen, and therefore I'm changing the size of it, and then I'm also changing the legends, or I'm adding some kind of a words over here, because obviously or I'm moving the title from the top of this image originally, and I'm move to this location, for example, and then I'm changing the font size, etc., and so on, like this one. So in order to produce this, there are many steps that need to be tackled. So if you are if you are imagining that, or if you are thinking that in order to produce a good quality paper or a good quality final project needs a lot of efforts, the answer is yes, because not only the content of your final project report or of your paper should be high quality, the visuals and also the graph, the figures, the map, etc., and so on needs also in the high quality format. Okay, and another example like this one, MATLAB only produce this map, or this contour map of porosity and permeability, but the information given on the top left, bottom, and right of this graph can be done using third-party software, and in this case, I'm using Adobe Illustrator as the software that I'm using to produce that figure for my dissertation proposal. But it doesn't mean that there are no alternative for Adobe Illustrator, because Adobe Illustrator itself is a expensive software, and then the original version will cost one user hundreds of dollars. So there are free version of it. Okay, there are not what I mean with free version of it is there are freewares. Okay, free software that also have the same ability of Adobe Illustrator. Okay, and also true for raster image. So if you are still doesn't want to move from raster image to vector image, you still want to work on the raster image editing, the obvious choice for that is basically Adobe Photoshop, right? Whilst for vector image, you could also use CorelDRAW, for example. But for raster image, usually you could use, well, even in Microsoft Windows itself, they have a basic raster image editing that you can choose, and that you can use for editing a certain raster image figures. But what I'm going to say is that it is not compulsory for you to have these two software in order to make an editing of your figures. You could choose a freeware, a free software to use in order to have the same quality image as those who are produced or those are edited using Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. And you, well, the simplest one is basically to use PowerPoint. Okay, to use PowerPoint, for example. But that is the most basic way for you to produce a good quality graph. Even for us, a lecturer, when we are editing certain graph for exams, we are not just copy and paste the figures from the textbooks. We usually fix the figure first before we use it for exam or for quizzes, and therefore basic editing skills for figures is essential for you in order to have a good quality manuscript, not only in terms of its content, but also in terms of its visuals, especially for you in terms of designing your PowerPoint presentations. Okay, for let me. Do I have some kind of a? Do I have some kind of versions? Let me see. I only have. Okay, so this is the presentation. So this is the presentation. So this is the presentation slide that I already converted into PDF. Fit with no, I want to make an actual size. Okay, so this one. Okay, so here is a slide when I'm giving a talk in the SDG meetings, and as you can see, this was done in a very conservative way, in some way, even though I am not using Colibri and Arial fonts too much for this one, because if you see here, it is a Comic Sans font type. Okay, for this one, it's just to balance the formality of this logo, for example, here. So the objective at that time was to make the focus of my audience focusing on my presentation, obviously. And so the choice of fonts that I use there is not in a very conservative way. So I am mixing, I'm basically mixing formal and non-formal type of fonts for my presentations. And you can see here is that the proportion of words compared to the figure is more or less less on the wording and more on the object or on the equation that needs to be explained over here. So here, even in this PowerPoint slide, the amount of work of figure editing is tremendous. Okay, so in order for you to produce this type of quality of your slides of your PowerPoint presentation, you need to allocate time to produce good quality figures. Okay, because especially for presentation, the focus is not on the wording, it is not on the sentences that you have or the paragraph that you write in your slide, but on your visual of your PowerPoints, basically, right? So focusing on the visual of the figures is essential for you to have a good quality PowerPoint presentation. And even look at here, the summary is very brief. I only gave 4 conclusions as my as the conclusion of this talk that you could take, for example. But actually, this is not a very good example because there are more experts that handling more sophisticated presentation in a very engaging way compared to this study. And as you can see here, for a 15 minutes presentation, I only produce 15 to 17 presentation, whereas the important slides is only 15. Okay, because the other 2 is basically your title, okay, the title and the acknowledgements, okay, the acknowledgement. And I'm not including the references because it is not necessary for a scientific presentations. Even in your final project defense, even for your thesis defense, showing your references, your reference list, whatever it is not important, okay? Because if you are going to show some kind of a figure that is coming out from other paper, for example, you can just do this. For example, this graph is coming out from Raffat et al. From 2018, and this one is from Vinogradov, this is from Boucher, and etc. and so on. So you don't need to add a specific slide for references or even for a thank you message at the end, okay? Because it can be done orally from your mouth, asking the permission to close your presentation. Okay, so this one is one example of the importance of figure editing. Okay, figure editing before you moving on to your paper or to your presentation. And then the final application, the final softwares that you can use to that you can use for your paper writing and your well, it is more useful for paper writing actually. Is how we import citations. Okay, because as you are progressing from your first meeting with your advisor until the date of your defense, for example, you will learn or you will read many manuscripts or many papers for your own literature review. So therefore, in order for you to have that ordered list of publications that the examinee will look upon for the reference list, okay? So this is the difference between presentation slide and your final project report, is that in presentation, you're not required to show the reference list, but on your paper or on your report, it is essential to include that because it is one part, because it is also, well, it is not the main body of the manuscript, but it is compulsory for a certain paper and certain final project report to include references. And the examinee, okay, or for those who are involved in publication, the editor will look for the references. If the references is relevant, if well, obviously the one who is going to check your reference list if you are planning to send manuscript into publications is basically the reviewer, and reviewer acts like the examinee of your final project report. They will look for the historical background of your study. They will check the correct the available information that is given in your reference list. They will check whether the reference list is basically giving you the correct information as it was written in the manuscript, or you just making no sense of it. You make wrong interpretation of it, because if you are making wrong interpretation of a certain source in your final project, probably the examiner will ask you to remove it or to edit it or to revise it. In an actual publication, however, if one publication is wrongly cited or if it's wrongly interpreted by one author, the journal can be retracted or can be asked to withdraw. Okay, it can be lead to the cancellation of publications, okay, of your research if one study is considered as wrongly interpreted from the original source. So it does. So here the problem is not related to plagiarism. It's related to our inability to make the correct sense of the previous studies into our own. Okay, so it doesn't relate to plagiarism at all. The cancellation was, but it's related to the in our inability to give the correct sense of the previous study. So make sure that you are make sure that you do your literature review well, so that you are not misinterpreted, so that you are not wrong in learning about the materials that you have for your introduction, etc., and so on, and then you have the correct message as it was told by the author of the original paper. Okay, so in order for you, to help you to this applications over here, such as Zotero, Mendeley, and then EndNote, etc. So it's basically created to help you to manage all of the papers that you already read, and then you can make some kind of a classification on certain publication, whether this is included into application, and this is included into the basic theory of A. This is one is basic theory of B, and this is one is talking about the analysis method of A, B, and C, etc. So on. So it makes some kind of a better management on the references or papers that you already read, and you're taking information from. Okay, so it's basically helping you to sort of those things. Okay, so the next one. Okay, so here is a poster presentation that I'm going to talk about it after 10 minutes presentation. So, okay, so I think that those are the tools that you could have in order to make the quality of your presentation and the quality of your paper better. Okay, so firstly, you have a grammar check, and then the second one is plagiarism check, and then the third one is the equation tool, and then the fifth one is image editing tools. Okay, image editing, right? Not to change the data, because falsifying or changing the data in order to fit the hypothesis, or in order for us to, or if you are hiding the data, or you basically cut the data and so on, it is not part of image editing, but it's a falsification of data, and falsification of data may lead to academic misconduct, and academic misconduct can be it leads to a severe penalty, which can lead to punishment from institution, etc. and so on. Okay, so make sure that you use this editor. It's just to edit something to make the visual of your graph becomes better than the original version. Okay, and then the last one is the import citation tools that you can have in order for you to classify the papers that you already read into a certain category, such as whether it's related to some theory or some analysis method, or to some applications, etc. and so on. Okay, so these are the tools. Okay, let me check the EduNext whether it's already available. Okay, okay, now it's running. So okay, so if you are going to EduNext and then click the materials given in week 9, okay, you can see the same thing that I have already shown you from FMIPA online course. Okay, because this is the LMS that we use in the last semester. This semester we use EduNext, and the materials given here is basically the same with the one that I've already talked to you earlier. So make sure that you are familiar with these tools, because I'm hoping that you are learning to use these tools in one way to another. Probably most of you are still using Microsoft Words in the minimum way. So from here, I'm expecting you to learn more things, especially in terms of image editing and etc. and so on. So if the production of your paper for this class, well, you can start from this class in order for you to produce good quality paper, or for you to have a good visual presentation, okay, and the content is also good, then you may start to look upon this application so that you can have good quality presentation and paper later on. Okay, so if you able to access it, please access to the corresponding video for introducing you to the tools that you have. But especially for the grammar check, okay, if you are as I mentioned earlier, the first editor of your manuscript is yourself. So make sure that you also have that language ability on the top level, so that the tools that you use later on to check the manuscript will give you minimum result, okay? Because beforehand you already edited by yourself, and you master the language in one way to another, so that the result of the grammar check and also the similarity check becomes in the minimum number, okay? Make sure, because we cannot depend entirely with the usage of that grammar and similarity check software, even though it's readily available outside. Okay, I guess that's all for today's. And if we are checking our schedule, okay, let me see. After we talk about the relevant software, which includes the import citations. Okay, next Tuesday, we're going to have presenters workshop. So make sure that all of you already have a draft for your 10 minutes presentation, because we are going to start our 10 minutes presentation next week. Okay, so Thursday next week, we're going to start our 10 minutes presentation. And before that, in Tuesday, we're going to have presenters workshop, where I'm going to look upon your draft and give you suggestion, and we're going to discuss about the draft itself. Okay, whether the visuals and the design of your draft is already in the perfect, already in the good condition for the actual presentation. Okay, I will stop my lecture here, and then I will stop the recording.